And this is like such a cool gym to work out at. There's never anybody here whenever I come to train. I just kind of have like my own alone time. And it just used to be me and the weights, nothing but myself. But the one downside is when it gets hot in here, it's hot. Like it's like 100 degrees outside right now and I'm dying right now. But that's okay. Because I feel like it's kind of like, you know, it's good for you to train in environments that are a little tough. I feel like it makes you like a better lifter training under less ideal circumstances like this or something like that. I don't know. So I did my first powerlifting meet when I was 15. I'm currently 24 years old. So it's been like 9 years on and off there, and I really love it. You know, like the last couple years I've been pretty into it for, you know, years and years now. And it's kind of provided me with a life that I never would have imagined as a child. And I think it's just really awesome, and I love everything about it. Now, with all that being said, there's a couple of things that go on in the community that kind of irritate me a little bit, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because after all, I am human, so, you know, I get upset like everybody else. Alright, so my first pet peeve is going to be the guys who are really big, you know, the super heavyweights, 308s, maybe somewhere in there, guys who weigh over 300 pounds, who are maybe not the most competitive lifters in their weight class, so they have to resort to dogging on the guys who are like 181, 198. They have to put those guys down saying, hey, forget about your Wilks. Wilks doesn't matter because my total's still bigger than yours, because in the jungle, there's no weight classes. And while that's great and all, and I totally understand where they're coming from, yes, overall, maybe they are stronger than the guys who weigh over 100 pounds less than they do. And yeah, you're right, in real life and in the jungle, there's no weight classes. But guess what? There's weight classes in powerlifting, and there's things called a wilks score that kind of determines where you stand on your total compared to your body weight. And I know wilks isn't the best, it is not the best way to do that, but there's a lot of biases with it and this and that, and there's a lot of things wrong with it, yada yada. You can go on about it all day, but it's the best thing we have right now. So congratulations, you're stronger than the guy who weighs over 100 pounds less than you do. And yes, in the jungle, baby, yeah, I know you would kill him in the jungle, but guess what? This is powerlifting. You gotta play by the rules. That's how the rules of the game work. Your argument of no weight classes in the jungle does not apply to the sport of powerlifting, so let's just leave that argument outside of the sport. Alright, so the second one now is going to be powerlifters, you know, within the sport of powerlifting, who hate on the sumo deadlift. That's right, I said it, and you know this one's going to hit home for me too, and I got plenty to say about it. But guess what? Just like Wilks, it's a little ridiculous to hate on a sumo deadlift, in my opinion. If you are participating in powerlifting, that means you know and understand the rules of the sport and kind of how it works. Well, the sumo deadlift is a part of powerlifting, so it kind of blows my mind a little bit when people try to make such a big deal about it, because it's part of the sport. It's within the rules. You can do it. It's similar to like people who arch their back ridiculously on bench press. Kind of like I'm doing here. I would do it more if I could, honestly. Guess why? Because it's within the rules, and it's not about how you lift the weight. It's about how much weight you lift. And I get that that's not like everyone's favorite rule, but you know, it is just kind of part of the sport. And I totally understand some of the hate that comes from people who maybe don't powerlift, maybe some like bodybuilders, CrossFitters, or whoever, maybe some strongmen who hate on the sumo deadlift. That's a little different in my opinion because, well, yeah, they don't powerlift, so maybe they don't respect sumo deadlift the same way they do conventional deadlifts. But it's no different than how maybe for strongman, I'm not the biggest fan of how they always use like suits, and they literally use straps for every kind of deadlift they do, pretty much always. But guess what? I don't hate on it. I respect it because it's part of their sport. That's like what they do. Those are the rules. They play by the rules. As long as it's within the rules, I don't have a problem with it. And I'll just compare those lifts to each other done within strongman. I keep those completely separate from powerlifting. If you're within powerlifting, shut up. Like, just shut up about sumo deadlifting. You're choosing to compete in powerlifting. Don't complain about it. All right. Number 3, records. whether it be world records, national records, state records, junior records, master records, you name it, all of the above. And I always congratulate anybody who sets some kind of record in powerlifting, and that's not really what I'm complaining about here. That is not my complaint about it at all, so don't get me wrong here. So no matter what record is, it absolutely matters. Like if you have worked hard for it and you have gone after it and you have broken it, good for you, congratulations. Like that's not what I'm getting at here at all. My problem with records is, and maybe for those of you who aren't super familiar with the sport of powerlifting, well, there's a million different federations, and each federation has their own set of records, okay? So what I'm gonna complain about is maybe some of the people who set these records don't exactly specify like what record it is that they broke. They'll just leave it as simple as, hey, I broke a state record in my weight class, or a national record in my weight class, or a world record in my weight class. Now, I think we're all familiar that there's weight classes and a record applies to each weight class. It's not under like one giant total of like everybody. It is broken up by weight class. I think we all know that. But there's a lot of different federations. And if you're one of the ones that, you know, has broken either like a world record, state record, national record in whatever federation, I think you absolutely need to specify what record it is that you broke, because otherwise I feel like it is, to a certain extent, it is a little dishonest, because if you're saying that you broke like a world record and really it was just for like a federation within like a certain age division and weight class, like you're being, I think it is a little dishonest, and you're giving yourself a little more credit than like what you actually deserve, because maybe for people outside of the sport who don't understand how all these records work and stuff, you know, it makes it look like you maybe accomplished something a little bigger than what you really did. Not taking away from your accomplishment, but it's just not the same thing. You know, for example, whenever I was a junior, so I was 21 years old, I broke an IPL world record in the deadlift for the 220 pound weight class for the junior division, okay? Like that's all it was. Like, so it breaks down that far, and I made sure to specify that because I felt like if I didn't, I would have been, you know, I feel like I was like kind of lying if I just called it a world record without specifying, hey, no, that's only for this federation, for this weight class, and for this age division. And again, that's not to take away from any records that anybody's broken, but I think it's just really important to specify, because it is going to confuse people, and like I said, it is a little bit dishonest, because it's just not really fair to give yourself the same credit that somebody who's broken like an all-time world record gets. You know what I mean? Like it's just not, it's a different comparison, and it's just not really fair for you to do that if that's not what your record actually is. And I've seen people do it. I've seen people post, oh, world record, this and that, and they don't specify what it is, and they go around telling all their buddies and telling all their friends and posting online, hey, look, I broke a world record, or hey, I broke a national record, but they don't specify exactly what it is. And I'm not saying everybody does this. There's actually I can probably find more examples of people who don't do this, and whenever they break like whatever record it is they break it down and they specify exactly what record it is that they broke. And I respect that and I appreciate it. And that's great, but every now and then, you know, I've seen like a handful of people who don't do that, and it kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. All right, guys, and number 4 is going to be crappy federations and backyard meets. You know what I mean? Just kind of wanted to rant while I did some bench stuff, you know. But more specifically, the lifters who take advantage of these crappy federations to set records. And we all know who some of these people are, and we know what these federations are, and we know what's going on. More often than not, it's a high squat that gets counted as an all-time world record, or a high squat that gets counted towards a giant total. And then when you go look at the rankings on like open powerlifting, which if you guys don't use open powerlifting for powerlifting rankings, what are you doing? That's like the place to go. They're freaking awesome. And then when you look at them on there, you don't know that squat was maybe like 5 inches high and it got counted towards their total or counted towards a world record. I've seen world records getting stolen from people that should not have counted at all. That, you know, like a high squat that maybe shouldn't have got past, and it just really irritates me. And I know that some lifters go in and take advantage of this on purpose. And they'll always say, you know, the famous saying is, hey bro, your opinion doesn't matter. It's only the judge's opinion that mattered. The judges that were there that day, they gave me 3 white lights. And I'm like, yeah, man, I know, but how could you be okay with that? Like, it sucks. Like, but I don't know, to each their own. And it's not necessarily anything against the federation itself. It's more so against the lifters who go in and take advantage of the federation and maybe some judges who don't have that much experience. It's those guys who I'm kind of really attacking here. The ones who go and do those kinds of things. Like, it's ruining the sport, and it just kind of makes powerlifting look bad. Oh, and don't even get me started on the multiply high squats that have like kind of always gone on over the years and years. It wasn't parallel. It wasn't parallel, okay? It wasn't. Like, just these crappy federations probably just need to either step their game up or just go away. But at the end of the day, it's up to the integrity of the lifter to pick a good federation with good judges who are going to enforce these standards. Or if they're not going to, at least enforce the standards yourself. Live to those standards. All right, so the last one I want to complain about today is going to be the famous genetics and leverages. Yeah, I know you would be as good as this person over there if you just had the same leverages and genetics they did. I know. Cry me a river. I think using like leverages in genetics is such a poor excuse as to why you're not as strong as you want to be. Like, I think it's just a really bad excuse. And yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like that doesn't have a lot to do with powerlifting. Obviously, genetics are important. Obviously, leverages are important too. And of course, I am talking a little bit from experience here too, because like one thing that I see all the time, okay, obviously my arms are long, right? People are like, well, you're only good at deadlift because your arms are so long. I'm like, yeah, but am I though? Is that the only reason I'm good at deadlift? And I don't have like the best leverages for bench or squat, but who cares? Like, you think I haven't known this my whole life? Like, you think I wasn't in high school and like, hey, if I was like 5 inches shorter like that guy over there, maybe I could squat like 100 pounds more. Well, what good is that gonna do me to think that to myself? That's only gonna be like a setback. If I'm putting that in my head, if I'm limiting myself up here with those kinds of thoughts, guess what? I'm limiting myself in the gym. So I've never even thought about it. I've just said, hey, this is what I got to work with. This is what I'm gonna go and do. That's all I can do. So don't tell yourself that you would be better and better if you had these genetics or, you know, or these leverages or this and that. It does not do you any good. It's like, well, you don't have those genetics. You don't have those leverages. It doesn't do you any good to compare yourself to maybe somebody who does. All you can do is just work on yourself. And honestly, my biggest thing about powerlifting is that it doesn't matter like how strong you are compared to somebody else. The only thing that matters is like you being stronger than you used to be. And it's like, that's really the best you can do. And then the other thing about leverages is that you can find a lot of examples of this. Nobody is built perfectly for all three of the power lifts, you know, that being squat, bench press, and deadlift. I don't think there's really anybody who's like completely perfectly built for all three. I mean, someone is gonna have a disadvantage somewhere in there, okay? Like look at me, for example. Like, my leverages are very advantageous for the deadlift. But guess what? That doesn't necessarily help me out with bench press or squatting very much at all, now does it? And that's why we have what's called the total. That's why we have 3 different lifts that we put together that kind of determines, hey, this is how good you are overall as a lifter. Overall, this is how much weight you're able to lift on this variety of lifts. And I think it's very fair, because maybe the guy with short legs and short arms is real good at squat and bench, but guess what? Maybe he sucks at deadlift. Like, I feel like most of the time it's gonna even out some way or another, and so it's just not worth complaining about at the end of the day. Well, that's gonna be it. Those are 5 powerlifting pet peeves of mine, and I wouldn't even call them a top 5. These are just 5 that I thought of just now. There's a lot more I could do, but I think that's enough ranting for one day. Just kind of wanted to rant a little bit while I did my light little bench workout here at the end of the week. So definitely appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch y'all next time.